Hi, and thank you for joining us for this episode of The State of Leadership Simple and Beyond. That is Robert Hilliard. I am Whitnie Wiley, and we are here on Thursdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Pacific, talking all things leadership. And it is the third Thursday of the month, which means fourth Thursday. Fourth Thursday, right? Fourth Thursday of the month, which means we are here talking about our monthly book club selection. And our selection this month is Evolve the Brain by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And so we're going to dig into that. I promise you we will not get overly sciencey, which could be really possible with this book, along with his other book that I have read, the Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Sort of the same sorts of conversations. We're going to be talking about your brain, what it does, the intersection between psychology, neuroscience, spirituality, and understanding how your brain works and how you can learn to take control of your thoughts and emotions and ultimately transform your life for the better. So, Robert, any opening thoughts before we dig into this?
Well, full disclosure, I did not read this book, but
Okay.
I did a lot of research about the book. I listened to, looked at a lot of videos, and I went online and did some research to kind of get myself familiar with what you'd be talking about, because I didn't want to be sitting here like a bump on a log.
Well, we certainly wouldn't want that. And so here's the thing. When we talk about the books each month, we're not going to tell you everything that's in the book, right? The goal is to encourage you to read the book for yourself, but to get enough information that makes you want to read it and want to, I think even more importantly than read it, put into practice what you can learn in the book. So I'll just say this, that the book is a bit sciencey. And so it's technical because it's talking about the brain and how it works. And I am not a neuroscientist. I don't even play one on TV, so I'm not even going to pretend to try to explain those things. But I can break it down into and summarize it in a way that I think can be helpful. And what I really would like to do is to give you some tips that you can walk away with and implement. So whether you read the book or not, ultimately, you will benefit from my having read the book, Robert's having done quite a bit of research on the book and the concepts therein, and use that to your advantage. Not only your advantage, but the whole point is for you to be a better leader. So you can take it and use the concepts to improve your leadership overall. And so what basically we're talking about is rewiring the brain, right? And so you can do all kinds of research about how you rewire your brain. And I will give you a couple of activities that you can actually do on a daily basis. We've talked about these before. When we started the year off, our first book that we read was The Miracle Morning. Some of the concepts that were in that book are in this book, right? And again, in terms of building habits, rewiring your brain, changing your habits, your beliefs, your behaviors, all of this is interconnected, but having some concept of why you do what you do, how you do it, and how you can change it can be very helpful for you. So interested in knowing in your research, Robert, did you see anything? You don't have to disclose what it is just yet, because we'll talk about some of these things, but did you run across anything that that made you, because I know you're sciencey, you're sort of a geeky dude, right?
Yeah.
I'm not
Henceforth for all the
out of
books.
school, right?
What was that?
I said I'm not telling tales out of school saying you're a little geeky, right?
No, no. I get really fascinated by that stuff, especially when, when I was doing my research about the book, and what the first thing that came into my head was, oh, this is the stuff that I do all the time anyway. This is the stuff I talk about with my clients. I'm sure you talk about it with your clients too. It's about forming new habits and why your body, what's going on inside your body while you're doing that. And what's very interesting about this is I was having a conversation with somebody who was really struggling with changing some habits, and I said, well, where's your mind? They were like, well, it's here, right? We tend to think that our mind is up here someplace. It's attached to your body, and it's controlling everything you do.
Yeah.
A lot of it, unconsciously. And so he talks about that. I'm going to let you, handle that because you've read the book and you can talk about it way better than I can. And how all the systems that are related to that, your amygdala, your prefrontal cortex, and the limbic system, and all that stuff, how it goes, how they work together to create, the person that you are right now, and how you can change that stuff to develop new habits. So I thought that was
And I absolutely am not going to talk about any of that stuff because that's sciencey, that's geeky, and it's like, you don't want to talk about something be out there. That's like way over my head.
No.
But I do want to talk about that the one concept that sort of overarches all of this, and that's neuroplasticity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's big word, right? But it's simply the concept that our brains can change and reorganize itself throughout our lives, right? And it is constantly doing that. The goal here, though, is for you to do it intentionally, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you have the ability to change your brain's functions, your habits, your thoughts, your emotions, right? We tend to think, and I can remember saying this all the time. It's like, I can't control what I think. Well, that's absolutely not true, right? So, and then I shifted that to, I can't control what comes into my head. Again, not true. Not true 100%. I'll put it that way. So we are certainly in control of those things that we ruminate on, right? We may not be able to control 100% the thoughts that flash through our head, but we can decide whether or not, when it pops into our head, whether or not we continue to hold that thought, because thoughts come from basically, our thoughts come from our beliefs and our experiences. And then we have these thoughts, and then they're creating our emotions. And it's cyclical, it's circular, right? And so they feed upon each other and sort of bring them in to our space. So they show up in our relationship with ourselves. They show up in our relationships with our family, friends, and coworkers. So that means it shows up in how you lead, your thoughts, your experiences, your beliefs. All of that coalesces to dictate how you behave. And so over the course of time that we've been doing this show, what we've wanted to highlight is that you get to decide what kind of leader you want to be, right? And you get to decide what kind of person you're going to be. And so understanding how your brain works, how all the technical things function, and how ultimately you can change that if it's not happening the way that you want, or you're certainly not getting the results that you want. The good news is that you can do something about it. And so neuroplasticity allows the brain to modify existing neural pathways, right? The neurons are those electrical currents and I said I wasn't going to get sciencey. That's about as sciencey as I'm going to get, right? Those electrical currents that are happening in your brain, they're firing. You can change those, right? You can change those and do what's called rewiring, right? So you can create new neural pathways. You can compensate for injury or damage. And when we read the Miracle Morning, one of the stories in there is how Elrod, the author of that, had brain injury. He was in a car accident, had brain injury, and he started changing the way his mind was working, his brain was working, in order to move away from the life that the doctor said he was going to live the life that he wants to live. And certainly you have heard of like the placebo effect, what we believe, right? What we reinforce, the thoughts that we focus on dictate the reality. They dictate our lives. And I actually I listened to the book on Audible, and when he was talking about pain, as a for instance, that we exacerbate the pain that we feel. So we feel it, we can change our thoughts around that, and the pain can go away. And then we have that moment where we ask the question, so has the pain really gone away or not gone away, right? And the moment you have that thought and you revisit it, all of a sudden the pain comes back, right? And if you think about how if you take a pain medication, I remember having had surgery on my knee. I had my meniscus repaired a few years back, and the doctor kept saying, don't wait until the pain comes to take the pain medication. Just sort of take it on this regular basis. Well, I'm someone who is not big on taking, I don't care to take drugs. I don't care to introduce those things. And maybe to my detriment, I do it at the last possible minute. It's the same thing with taking an aspirin or pain medication. It's like I'm trying everything else holistically before I sort of give in to that. And for the most part, I don't have problems, right? I try to stay hydrated. I move my body, those things, so that pain is at a minimum. But there are times when I've done something and there's nothing I feel like in that moment I can do about it. And I will, I'll take a, Advil or whatever it is. But after the surgery, I had some really heavy duty, they give you good stuff. You have surgery, they give you good stuff. And so I wanted to be functional. And so I wasn't willing to take it. And so when I went in to visit and he asked the questions, in my post-op, and I was saying, well, the pain isn't going away. And he's like, well, when are you taking this? I was like, well, when I'm feeling something. He's like, no, you have to do it before that. And so I started thinking about the pain differently. And for the most part, I didn't end up taking pain medications beyond maybe day 2 or 3 or so. And so the point is, we can, right, by changing what we choose to focus on, right, change the neural pathways, and we can, even out of injury or damage to our brain or other parts of our bodies, we can make changes. So you've heard, like I said, I was saying the placebo effect, that people think that they get something that will address a particular ailment, and they got a placebo, but the mind has told them that it's healed, or it's fixed. And a lot of what we go through is because we've told ourselves, convinced ourselves that that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, this is a couple of things came to mind, and this whole neuroplasticity thing. What makes it a big deal? It's not so much of a big deal now as it was several years ago, because the old theory was that once you reached a certain age, new neurons did not reconnect. So, and that's because when you're young, I think it's before the age of 3, that's when your brain is making all the critical connections that are going to make you you, pretty much. But what they found was that you can, by effort, rewire your brain. The brain, it's not just, it's set for certain things, but you can rewire your brain so you can develop new habits, you can get better at certain things. Which brings to mind a conversation I had between a former boss and the CEO of an organization I used to work with. And I thankfully did not get involved in this conversation. But my former boss was telling the CEO that he wanted to start taking piano lessons, and the CEO said, "You won't be able to learn it." And I just said, "Zip." I didn't say anything, because you can learn it, but that's the old way of thinking. Well, if you didn't learn it when you were a kid, you can't learn it as an adult. That's not true. It may take you longer because you have different habits that you have to break, but your brain will eventually rewire. And so the phrase I think they use is neurons that fire together, wire together.
Mm-hmm.
And you get them to fire together and they will rewire. It may take time to do it. But what people forget is that once that, you will lose something else. So your brain is immensely efficient. And if you're not using something, you will lose that thing. And this is, so you can rewire your brain to do other things, but your brain will, what they call is prune the neurons that you're not using, which is why it's sometimes harder to come back to something that you used to know. Musicians have a hard time picking up their instrument again after many years. It's not like riding a bike, because if you use those neurons to do other things, the brain will say, okay, well, it looks like all these scales and chords are not being used over here. Let's start getting rid of them. So, but you can learn new things. So I just want to put that out there, because you will lose the things that you're not using, but you can gain other things that you are putting your effort toward.
And I think that's a really important point to remember, Robert, which is that concept we were told. Again, this is about beliefs and experience. Oh, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. That's not true for dogs or people. Dogs or people, right? And what science is telling us is that some of the cognitive illnesses, diseases that we have are because we're not using things, right? We're not using our brain. And to stave off things like dementia and Alzheimer's and other things is to constantly be learning new things, right? To constantly be putting, we're rewiring the brain. So we don't get old. What did they say? You don't, I can't even think of what I'm trying to say, but we get old because we're not using things, right? We're not growing and learning, and therefore keeping our physically, mentally, emotionally. You don't move your body, your body will decide, I guess you don't need to move, and so I'm not going to work as well as I did, right? So as we get older physically and in the use of our brain, do more, not less, right? I guess is keep reading, right? Keep talking, keep walking, keep having conversations with people, keep stimulating your brain so that the neurons will continue to fire. And so I'm going to actually walk through what I'm going to call 5 keys to evolve your brain. So taking this out of the book, and I'm just going to walk through 5 keys to help. One is to develop awareness of your thoughts and your emotions, right? So if you want to change your brain, you need to be aware of what you're currently thinking. What are your current thought patterns in your emotional states? And you need to start paying attention to the internal dialogue that's in your head and the emotions that arise in different situations. The more we can stay aware, right? You can't change things that don't have knowledge of, don't have awareness of. And so by developing a greater awareness of your thoughts and emotions, you can improve your emotional intelligence and better understand the emotional states of those that you lead. And we've talked about emotional intelligence on the show quite a bit, right? This is about your awareness of how you who you are, what your emotions are, how you respond and behave in certain situations, and that of people that you interact with, right? So there's self-awareness, there's self-motivation, self-regulation, self-management. There is social awareness. That's between you and other people, and then relationship management. Those are the 4 key components of emotional intelligence. And the more you are cognizant of that, right, the better able you are to make changes if any of those things are not working for you. Any thoughts there?
No, I agree totally. Yeah, I can't add anything to that. That was well said.
So another thing is to practice mindfulness, right? And so in terms of rewiring your brain, meditation and visualization help you rewire your brain by strengthening those neural connections and weakening old ones. And so, Robert was talking about musicians. One of the things that musicians do, athletes, actors, people in other entertainment industries, is that they're practicing something over and over and over again, right? And that's sort of the point of meditation, is to constantly be in some respect in control, right? And deciding that when your mind goes in a different direction than whatever you're focused on, whether it's the breath, a sound, some sensation, when your mind moves away from that, is to bring it back. And you keep bringing it back. You bring it back to whatever is the focus of your meditation. Visualization is the same thing. It's where you are visualizing something and you are deciding what it's going to be in the future, right? I think of this as previewing. When you have a desire for something the way you want to be, something you want to have, something you want to do, you visualize it and you continuously focus on that thing. Where focus goes, energy flows, right? So the more, or is that the other way around? Where energy goes, focus flows. Where focus goes, energy flows. I can't ever remember the order of that. But the point is that what you keep your mind focused on, right, that's what you end up putting your energy on. And so one of the others is going to be about being positive emotions, positive thoughts. The more you are focused in a particular direction, right, the more you bring that into your life. And so you have to set aside time each day to practice the techniques.
Yeah, very good. One of the things that I like about the meditation aspect of that is it's 2 things. Mindfulness and meditation, they help you remain present in the moment, because that is the only place you actually have power. The past has already happened. You can't go into a time machine to redo it, and you don't know what the future holds. So it keeps you present, so you can put your energy there. The other part of that is many of the meditative practices that I engage in, they call for you to notice your thoughts. So it
Yes.
helps you become the observer of your thoughts. Many times we don't observe what we're thinking, we just let them happen. So that it does two things there. And the other thing is with visualization is that your mind does not know the difference between something being visualized and something that's actually happening. As my coach loves to tell me, is that if you're being chased by a tiger or you imagine being chased by a tiger, to your brain, you're being chased by a tiger. Doesn't matter.
And to that point, right, going to your earlier point about, the different parts of the brain, it will then trigger the rest of your body's systems to respond as if. So again, whether you're actually being chased or in your mind you're being chased, you can notice that your body will respond as if that's true.
Absolutely.
Your heart rate will go faster. Maybe you'll start sweating, can't breathe, whatever it is, because your brain doesn't know the difference. Good point. The next one is creating new habits and behaviors, right? Creating new habits and behaviors can help you become more effective and adaptable. And Dr. Dispenza emphasizes the power of repetition in creating neural pathways in the brain. And when we are consciously practicing new habits and behaviors, that's how we actually rewire our brain. And that is what allows us to be more resilient and adaptable. And that's one of the things that I think in leadership, because change is always happening, having the ability to be resilient in the face of change, to adapt to change as it's happening, we can control a lot of how we're going to respond to something that comes at us. We talk about external challenges all the time, right? By practicing this when we are not under those conditions, right, we develop the ability to respond more in line with the way we want to when something unexpected happens.
Makes a lot of sense.
And again, this goes to the point you just made. Our brains are adapting to our experiences, real or perceived. And by consistently practicing these habits, the new habits and behaviors, right, we get to strengthen them over time. So we want to rewire our brains, which allow us to develop a growth mindset, which allows us ultimately to be able to overcome obstacles and achieve our goals.
Yep, absolutely. Totally agree.
The next one is to focus on positive emotions, right? Focusing on positive emotions can have a significant impact on our performance and overall well-being. And this is something that when I met you, Robert, right, 8 years ago, wasn't something that was probably top of mind. I knew I needed to be more positive in my thinking and in my emotions, but I was very much still being yanked around by the environment that I was in. And I came to this place where I recognized that that wasn't how I wanted to live. I didn't want to be yanked around. I wanted to be as in control as one is able to be in control. And I just made some decisions, and people have asked, I'm not going to say or pretend that I'm 100% positive all the time, but I can pretty much pull myself out of, right? If something happens, I'll give an example. Recently, something that I'm working on, financially, business-wise, I am someone who doesn't always stop subscriptions when I should. And so, and you get these things and you get free trials, and yeah, and you put a little note to say, don't forget to stop this thing. And I had funded something out of a particular account that I use for things like that. Right. So it doesn't have cascading effects and affect other things. And I totally forgot to put a little notice to say, turn this thing off. And when I got the notice that I was charged for this subscription that I was not intending to keep, I had that moment where I was like, ugh, right? But I was like, okay, it's nothing you could do about it now. The money's gone. You've got it. You might as well use it.
Right.
Right. You might as well use it now. Or, and in all honesty, it happened like 3 times in a span of a week. Something that I saw was going to renew. I had it for a year. It was time to renew. And I was like, okay, it's going to renew. I'm going to make sure I undo this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I didn't stop it, I actually contacted them. They said they'd give a refund, and that was the end of that, right? But my point is that it could be really easy to have gone down a negative path, right? The money is gone. Nothing I can do about it. That money was meant for something else. It's like, well, what am I going to do? So positive emotions are come from a willingness to create a positive environment. And that's not just for yourself, but for other people. And the more we do that, the more our brain is in charge of, or we can direct our brain to stay in that positive state. Again, it goes back to awareness, right? The very first one, being willing to be aware and present. How am I feeling? How am I responding? Is this the way I want to feel? Is this the way I want to react as opposed to respond? And the more you practice it, the more you'll be able to notice when you're a little out of alignment and get back on track.
I think this is really important. And one of the things that I see that's, I think, more helpful lately, and maybe this is just my experience, I noticed that being positive is becoming more popular than it used to be. I remember, I think I told you that, and I think I mentioned it on the show, that years ago, a boss of mine and a coworker did an intervention for me because I was too positive in the morning. Right? Because you're too cheerful in the morning. We don't like you coming in and saying hi to us. And I looked at them, I said, I am not changing who I am for you two. But now people are more accepting of, oh, this person's positive. And I wasn't like, and you know me, I'm not like, hey, everybody. That's
right. Like
me.
some Pollyanna, just like,
that's not me. I was, they didn't like me coming in with a positive attitude because they didn't have one. Well, they were sour people, and that's okay. It's not a judgment. It's just, their personality, and that's okay. But it's becoming more.
So, but you say that, but it really is a choice, right? It's not just that's who I is. Go on, but.
Well, yeah, it is a choice. I mean, they
choose. Push back a little bit, but go on.
No, it could be out of habit, or maybe they're emulating. Maybe they were positive when they were younger, and they got don't do that. But it's just it was how they chose. It's how they chose to show up.
Yeah.
And the other aspect of this is that I forget, I lost my train of thought a little bit. But positivity is becoming more. I know the other part was more acceptable, and the other part is usually the things that we imagine are going to happen to us are more dire in our brains than what actually happens. There are some things that are as bad or worse than we imagine them. Those are rare. in my experience, that no one can create a disaster better than I can. And it's the worst thing, and it's usually not. It's usually a way to work around it. It usually works out to be okay. So we typically imagine things far worse than they actually turn out to be.
That is true, right? We have this propensity for what's called the negativity bias, right?
Mhm.
Which it's intended to protect us,
Mhm.
but we don't have to succumb to that, right?
Correct.
We do get, the whole point of this is that we get to choose. And so, as I just said, I was pushing back a little bit. As someone who used to say, "That's just how I am. That's just who I am." The question is who you are, who you want to be. Are you good with that? Are you just um uh s- accepting that because it's easier than making the change? And so what I wanted was a life that was not, when I sort of extrapolated my attitude, my behaviors, what was happening in my life, when I extrapolated that out to age 80, I was like, if I continue doing this thing that I'm doing, this behavior, these attitudes until I'm 80, I'm going to look back over my life and not have enjoyed my life, not have been happy, not have whatever, right? And so the pain of what was going to happen, I decided was not going to, I did not want that to stay. And so it just let me know that I needed to make some changes. And so again, it goes to awareness. If you don't have awareness of how you're feeling in the moment, it makes it difficult to make changes. But the good news is that you can have positive emotions, gratitude, joy, love. And the good news about that is that those things actually stimulate growth of new neurons and new connections in the brain, right? When you think about when they tell you babies when they're born, right? If they don't get love, right? We need love, we need joy, we need gratitude, and we don't have that love at the very beginning, right? We could die. And so the good news is that even if that happens in the beginning or somewhere else in your life, right, you can turn that around by having love, joy, gratitude. And we get to decide whether or not that's how we're going to feel, the emotions that we're going to choose to experience. And
Fantastic.
so every day, make a conscious effort to focus on positive emotions in your life. It may not turn everything around immediately, but give it time, stay persistent, diligent, and eventually you get there.
Okay.
And then the last one that I want to share is cultivating a growth mindset. Right? We get to do this, and leaders who want to continually improve and adapt, they have growth mindsets. And so this is about the power of belief and the impact of your limiting beliefs on the brain. Can turn that around. And by adopting a growth mindset and embracing change, you can inspire your team members to do the same. And that's the other part of this. This isn't just for your benefit. This benefits your team because you're a better person, makes you a better leader, better team, right? Because your team members see what's possible and they will learn from your examples. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, from your example and from you espousing the whole idea of learning from mistakes and continuous improvement, they will start to hopefully pick up those habits as well.
And the other part is that the growth mindset will help you improve creativity and innovation uh, for yourself and amongst your team members, right? And that will help to change the environment and give your team members the notion that thinking outside the box, coming up with new ideas, how it ultimately helps the business side of what you're doing, right? We're all here in business, whether you work for someone or you work for yourself, right? You're there solving problems for your clients, your customers, your constituents, and being able to stay innovative, creative, thinking outside the box, coming up with fresh new ideas will help you to solve the problems that you are actually hired to solve.
Yep, I can't agree more.
Okay, so as we begin to wrap up, I want to leave you with 3 exercises or activities that can help you to put the concepts that are in the book to use. And none of these are new or novel, right? They're time tested and true. And the first one is gratitude journaling. And just taking 10, 15 minutes in the morning or in the evening or a combination of the two, and to just write down 3 things that you're grateful for, right? When you write down what you're grateful for and how it makes you feel, right, it fires up again those neurons. And that's what we're aiming to do. This exercise will help you cultivate positive emotions, increase your awareness of what's good in your life, and enhance your emotional resilience. Gratitude journaling.
Fantastic.
Mindful breathing, right? Taking the time to find a quiet place, once, maybe twice a day, where you're not going to be disturbed. Sit in a comfortable way. Focus on your breath and observe the sensation of air entering and leaving your nostrils, right? If your mind wanders, come back. You just come back to the breath. Come back to the breath. 5-10 minutes every day, right? That will help you to practice mindfulness. It increases your self-awareness, right? Which is important for your emotional intelligence. And a nice side benefit is that it helps reduce stress and anxiety. And who couldn't use more of that? Reducing stress and anxiety. And then the third one is brainstorming new activities. So set aside, occasionally set aside 10 to 15 minutes to brainstorm new activities that you've always wanted to try, but haven't had the chance to, or haven't made the time to, right? Or something that you want to go back to. I love that the point you made about musicians. And yes, while it may not be as easy as riding a bike, or maybe it is as easy as riding a bike. Some of us don't ride bikes very well. So, maybe it is.
Maybe.
It may not come back immediately, but if it's something that they want to do, ultimately put the time and energy into, they probably can get back to where they were.
Yep.
And so write down the new activities that you want to try, and then choose one and commit to doing it within, let's say, the next week. Give yourself a challenge. What is a new activity or a hobby or something that you'd like to try? Doing something new, right, will again fire off those neurons. And this will challenge your brain by trying something new and stimulating in a stimulating activity, and it will help you to adopt a growth mindset by experiencing new experiences, by embracing new experiences and opportunities. So, Robert, any final thoughts?
No, I think this is great. And you know me, I always tell people that if all of it seems overwhelming, take one or two things and focus on that, and then add to it. So you've dropped some gems. So
Thank you. You know, again, the book is sciencey, right? Didn't want anyone to get lost in that. Could have, I could have just repeated all the sciencey things. Again,
that's what you have me for.
Not even going to pretend like I understand all of it. I don't feel like I need to understand all of it. I understand enough to know that my brain is not in control of me. I get to control my brain. And therefore I get to control my thoughts. I can control my emotions. And if I'm experiencing things that are not working for me, I can change that. And it's the same for you, right? If it's not working for you, you get to make a change. And so Evolve Your Brain offers valuable insights and practical tools that you can use to improve your leadership abilities. Understanding a little bit about how the brain works. You don't have to be a neuroscientist. You don't have to be a neuroplastician. Just a little bit of knowledge about how your brain works. Developing the awareness and emotional intelligence, taking the time to create new habits and behaviors, focusing on positive emotions, and cultivating a growth mindset. You're going to become more effective, more resilient, more adaptable. And that's what you need, but it's also what your team needs from you as their leader. So we want to thank you for joining us for the State of Leadership, Simple and Beyond. We hope that you found this valuable information. And again, we encourage you to check out the book, to read the book, or listen to it on Audible, or go check out YouTube videos and just learn a little bit more about this topic, even if you choose not to read the book. Don't let the sciencey part scare you. Next month, just want to give a heads up. Next month, our book club selection is titled Leadership by Peter G. Nordhaus. It's a comprehensive guide that explores the theories and practices of leadership. It discusses different leadership styles, including transformational, transactional, servant, authentic, and charismatic leadership. Covers a wide range of things. Again, power, motivation, decision making, right? We're talking about that today, decision making, and provides practical approach to leadership that you can apply in all sorts of contexts, including business, education, politics, and nonprofit organizations. So that's what you have to look forward to for next month. Robert, want to share a little bit about how someone could get in touch with you if they desired to?
Absolutely.
Because they should desire to.
I hope so. I think you're going to put it up. Well, you can email me at inspireme@roberthilliardcoaching.com. That's my email. When you go to, or you can go to my website, Robert Hilliard Coaching, and my website. When you go there, there is a form and you can fill it out. Tell me what ails you. If you want to. One of the things that I really focus on is effective leadership. If you want to enhance your leadership, I focus on leadership theories in the practical sense. So not a whole lot of theory, but how to put them into action, improve your leadership presence, and have a more effective team. That's what I focus on. So if that's what you're looking for, please contact me.
Awesome. Again, Robert's email and his website. Check him out. And if you are looking to make some changes in your career, managing your career better than you've managed it up till now. Check me out. I'm at shiftingintooaction.now.site, shiftingintooaction.now.site. If you go there, there are a couple of ebooks, one of which is called Love Your Work. It is my gift to you. Get the book, check it out. And if you'd like to have a conversation about how you can manage your career a little better, let's talk. So until next time, Thursdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Pacific. Take care.
See you then.